Marked by a tyrant after transmigrating. Chapter 04. After eating breakfast, the eunuchs quickly brought over a bowl of medicine. Perhaps the medicine had some calming properties, so when Yeshu obediently took it, he soon felt tired and drowsy and went back to sleep. When he woke up again, it was already afternoon. Jin Wang was no longer in the sleeping quarters. Yeshu had just finished dressing when some eunuchs quickly brought over his lunch. The head eunuch, head steward Gao Jin, bowed to Yeshu and said, "His Majesty has ordered for Minister Ye to go to the martial arts arena after lunch." Martial arts arena? What was Jin Wang up to now? Yeshu asked, "Does Gong Gong knew why His Majesty want me to go there for?" This servant does not know. After the eunuch passed on the message, he quietly waited to the side. Yeshu glanced at him and did not ask any more questions. This head eunuch had followed Jin Wang for many years and was his trusted aide. He was also a shrewd person. It was unlikely that he would be able to get anything out of him. Yeshu was served his bland meal, so he hurriedly filled his stomach and had Gao Jin bring him out. After leaving the sleeping quarters, he discovered that this was not the capital's imperial palace. This was Jin Wang's summer palace on the outskirts of the capital. The size of the summer palace was not much smaller than the one in the imperial capital. Yeshu's sleeping quarters were surrounded by a sizable lake. Yeshu followed the eunuch around the lakeside veranda. After walking for more than 10 minutes, he heard a loud bang before he even reached the martial arts arena. It was the sound of a gunshot. Yeshu's footsteps paused and he immediately wanted to run away. He knew then that Jin Wang was up to no good. The head steward next to him also stopped and asked, "Minister yet?" "No, it's nothing." Yeshu's face was a bit pale as he shook his head. Yeshu walked into the martial arts arena and immediately saw Jin Wang standing on a high platform in front of him. Jin Wang held a foreign-made gun in his hand. It was made entirely of silver and looked like a pistol but was slightly different. Bang! A gunshot rang out and it hit the bullseye. Jin Wang put down the gun and smiled at Yeshu. "What are you waiting for? Come here." Yeshu stepped forward. A small table was placed on top of the platform. Jin Wang pulled Yeshu over to the table and sat down. Immediately, a servant came over to serve them tea. Jin Wang looked at Yeshu and said, "My dear minister, you look much better." Yeshu said, "Imperial physician Feng has miraculous hands." "Thank you, Your Majesty, for being concerned." Jin Wang nodded and then said, "Since my beloved minister has recovered already, let us continue to talk about the previous matter." "Yeshu, is there an end to this?" Yeshu's heart was in turmoil but his face remained calm. He looked at Jin Wang serenely and waited for his next words. Jin Wang tilted his head and motioned to the eunuch beside him. Soon, footsteps could be heard from a distance. Yeshu looked in the direction of the sound and his expression immediately changed. On the other side of the martial arts arena, there were a dozen men and women with their hands tied and their mouths and eyes covered. Jin Wang's voice carried a hint of laughter. "My dear minister, you said earlier that all your plots were to lure out the enemy's spies in the capital. These words seem to be indeed true. Look, haven't we found them all?" Yeshu pursed his lips and vaguely realized what Jin Wang wanted to do. "Sure enough," Jin Wang continued, "my dear minister, you have performed a great service this time. Zhen will give you a chance to personally execute them. How about it?" Below the platform, the dozen spies were herded into the martial arts arena. The eunuch held up the gun. "This silver fire blunderbuss is a rare item. This prince has just obtained it and it has never been stained with blood yet." Jin Wang propped up his chin and said calmly, "Let's use this." This tyrant actually wanted to force him to kill people. Yeshu looked at the gun in the eunuch's hand and then looked at the dozen or so young men and women below the platform. His fingers trembled. Even if they were in the world inside a novel, these were still living people. "What are you waiting for? Didn't Minister Ye want to prove himself to Zhen?" Jin Wang stood up, took the gun and solemnly placed it in Yeshu's hand. His gaze was fixed on Yeshu's face and he said, "Kill them and Zhen will believe you." The gun that had just been fired was still hot. Jin Wang placed his palm on the back of Yeshu's hand and held it tightly. He turned the gun around and pointed it at the captives in the martial arts arena. The guards who were escorting the captives in the distance understood and released their chains and withdrew from the martial arts arena. In an instant, the dozen or so men and women began to flee in all directions. "No." Yeshu's body began to tremble. "I can't do it." Jin Wang lowered his eyes and looked at him. "You're still so soft-hearted." Slowly, he raised his hand and brushed Yeshu's hair behind his ear. His voice was gentle but cold. "When you sent people to assassinate Zhen, did you also feel this much pain? Or are you saying that if you didn't do it yourself, you wouldn't feel guilty? Or is it that Zhen's life is not worth anything in your eyes?" "It wasn't me." Yeshu raised his eyes and looked into those malicious eyes. His voice trembled. "You still don't believe me?" "Yes, Zhen don't believe you." Jin Wang released Yeshu and took half a step back. "Do it." The martial arts arena was completely silent. Yeshu only felt that the gun in his hand was at least 1,000 caddies heavy. It was so heavy that he almost couldn't hold it. The captives in the arena realized that they had nowhere to run and gradually calmed down. Only a few faint sobs could be heard. Fear spread silently. At the same time, a fruity aroma filled the air. This scent was much fainter than before. The sweet and sour taste that made people salivate quickly filled the entire martial arts arena. Jin Wang's expression was the first to change. Last night, Yeshu had just gone through his secondary gender presentation. After being marked by an alpha, his pheromones should have been temporarily suppressed. Perhaps it was because of the various stimuli today, but it actually caused his pheromones to go out of control again. The imperial palace's eunuchs and imperial guards, regardless of gender, were all mundane people. They couldn't smell the unique scent of an omega. However, the spies in the martial arts arena were different. Many of them were even alpha. Although all their eyes were covered, they still looked in the direction of the platform in front of them. The alluring pheromones gradually became sweet under the tense atmosphere. The atmosphere in the martial arts arena gradually became tense and charged. Only Yeshu, who was extremely nervous, didn't realize what was going on. Until Jin Wang snatched the gun from his hand. His voice was slightly hoarse as he exclaimed, "Enough. Come with me." He casually tossed the gun into the eunuch's hands and pulled Yeshu outside. Jin Wang ignored all the servants and captives in the arena. His footsteps were hurried as he quickly pulled Yeshu back to his quarters. "How did you dash?" Yeshu was just about to ask when Jin Wang suddenly pushed him hard against the door. Yeshu furrowed his brows in pain and looked up to meet Jin Wang's slightly red eyes. Both of their breaths immediately became hot. Perhaps it was because he had walked too quickly, but Yeshu's body gradually felt heated up. The small mole next to his earlobe also strangely itched. He really wanted for someone to touch it. He turned his head. Just as he raised his hand to do something, Jin Wang grabbed his wrist and forcefully pressed it to the side of his body. "Don't move." Jin Wang's voice was low and hoarse. It carried an oppressive pressure that made it hard for others to breathe. No alpha would be able to tolerate it if the omega that they had marked released their pheromones in front of outsiders. This was especially true for someone like Jin Wang. Yeshu's shoulders trembled slightly. He also didn't know why he was like this. The palm that grabbed his wrist seemed to become hot, like a small ball of fire that was burning his heart. An unprecedented impulse seemed to appear in his body. He longed to be touched, longed for something more intimate to be done to him. And it wanted this man. It could only be this man. This unfamiliar feeling made Yeshu very uneasy. He struggled a bit but was unable to break free. He said impatiently, "Jin Wang." Jin Wang's eyes flashed with a trace of emotion. The youth in his arms had tears in his eyes. His long eyelashes trembled slightly, and his expression was a bit weak and helpless. Was this also an act? Ever since Yeshu had woken up, Jin Wang had been constantly testing him. But the more he tried, the more uncertain he became. Even though there was evidence that this person was guilty, he still felt that it was not him. How could it be this little fool? Why would he betray him? Jin Wang had presented as an alpha for many years. He had always understood the principle of killing one to set an example to others, but only this person. This was the person who hugged him all night in the cold palace to keep him warm. It was this person who was willing to be beaten to get a bowl of hot soup for him. It was this person who knelt outside the Imperial Academy of Medicine for 3 days and 3 nights in order to urge an imperial physician to save his life. It was also this person who ran into his arms after he ran away and begged him to save him. In the end, he still couldn't bear to do it. Jin Wang leaned closer and breathed into Yeshu's ear. His breath carried the strong fragrance of strong wine, causing the body in his arms to tremble. Yechianan, Zhen will ask you one last time. You really didn't betray Zhen, right? Yeshu was an Omega. Omega would never lie under the influence of pheromones of the one who had marked them. Yeshu's mind was in a mess. He looked at Jin Wang and his eyelashes became wet. No. It wasn't me. It really wasn't. Jin Wang let out a long sigh of relief. Whatever. Whether it was true or not, he would believe it for now. If he kept him alive, he would be able to find out sooner or later. Even if he was found to be the culprit, there was still something he could do about it. What could an Omega who didn't even know that he had been marked do? Jin Wang massaged the back of Yeshu's neck. His fingers gently brushed against the small cinnabar mole. He lowered his head and kissed it. The influence of his pheromones immediately eased. After being comforted, Yeshu's tense body gradually relaxed. He leaned his head on Jin Wang's shoulder. Jin Wang picked him up and quickly walked into the inner room. He placed him on the bed. You only know how to bully people. Yeshu closed his eyes and muttered softly. He seemed to be unconscious, idiot ruler. Jin Wang. When Yeshu woke up again, the sky was already dark. The Emperor's dragon bed was soft and comfortable. However, after sleeping for almost an entire day, he still felt a little sore. Yeshu stretched lazily and sat up. He was confronted with a handsome face. Jin Wang was sitting by the bed. He was holding a memorial and reading it. When he saw Yeshu wake up, he tilted his head and smiled. Ah, my beloved official, you're awake. Why are you here? Jin Wang asked. Beloved minister, don't you remember what happened earlier? Yeshu really didn't remember. He only remembered that Jin Wang had suddenly brought him back to the palace from the martial arts arena. During that time, he seemed to have continued to interrogate him. After that, why did he faint? Yeshu pondered for a long time. Then, he suddenly realized, did you drug me? The more Yeshu thought about it, the more believable he felt it was. He questioned, there must have been something wrong with the food I ate at noon. You. What did you do to me? Jin Wang was so angry that he almost laughed. He pressed the space between his eyebrows and said, yes, Zhen drugged you. It's a secret drug newly developed by the Imperial Palace. After taking it, you can only speak the truth. You can't lie. Do you want to know what you said? Jin Wang threw the memorial on the small table beside him. He bent down and looked down at Yeshu. Yeshu swallowed hard and forced himself to calm down. What did I say? Jin Wang lifted a strand of his hair and smiled faintly. You called me idiot ruler for 43 times, a dog emperor for 37 times and 25 times you said. Yeshu's face turned deathly pale. He asked in a trembling voice. 25 times what? Jin Wang, you bastard. End chapter. Marked by a tyrant after transmigrating. Chapter 05. Perhaps it was because he had been frightened too much today, or perhaps it was because he had just woken up, but Yeshu's mind went completely blank. After a while, he forced a laugh and said, Your Majesty counted quite diligently. Jin Wang. Yeshu. What was he saying? Jin Wang had always been petty for a long time. When he had just ascended the throne, the state was still unstable. Some of the court officials had said behind his back that the new emperor didn't know how to judge people, so Jin Wang had cut off their tongues and fed them to the dogs. He had cussed him so many times. Yeshu felt his tongue go numb as if he was about to cry. I'm sorry. Jin Wang, however, just laughed. His finger gently slid across Yeshu's cheek, as if he was playing with it. You really should be punished. What should I punish you for? He straightened up and slowly said, It just so happens that when Zhen was dealing with government affairs, there were a few areas where Zhen couldn't decide. Minister Ye, how about you give me some pointers? Yeshu didn't know what he was playing at, so he hesitantly replied, This official doesn't dare. Why shouldn't you dare? Jin Wang raised his eyebrows. After this emperor ascended the throne, didn't Zhen always discuss government affairs with Minister Ye? When Zhen was busy, Minister Ye would even read the memorials for Zhen. Why won't you dare now? Yeshu was startled. The original didn't have many scenes in the novel. Other than being executed by Jin Wang at the beginning, most of the scenes were memories of the time when he and Jin Wang depended on each other for survival. He never knew that Jin Wang trusted the original to this extent. No wonder Jin Wang was so angry after he learned of his betrayal. Yeshu looked at Jin Wang's face from the side and his heart faintly stirred up with some other emotions. Rather than saying that he was angry, it was more like he was sad. He was actually, really sad. Jin Wang didn't know what he was thinking. He got up and walked to the table, waving at Yeshu, Come here. Yeshu walked over. There was only one chair beside the desk in the bedroom. Jin Wang was sitting on that chair, so Yeshu naturally stood beside him. How can you see from where you're standing? Jin Wang leaned back in his chair and gestured with his chin. Come and sit. Yeshu. Where was he supposed to sit? On his lap? Yeshu gritted his teeth. It's fine. This subject will just stand. Jin Wang said calmly, Minister Ye wants to defy an imperial order. To think that he was just sympathizing with him just now. This person was really sick in the head. Yeshu was so angry that his ears turned red, but he didn't dare to disobey. He sat stiffly on Jin Wang's lap. Jin Wang wrapped his arms around him and hugged him tightly. Yeshu's body stiffened even more. Jin Wang chuckled, You held onto Zhen so tightly last night and yet you're so distant today. Minister Ye's personality is really hard for Zhen to understand. Who was it that was hard to understand? They were so close that Yeshu's back was pressed against Jin Wang's chest. He could feel Jin Wang's breath on the back of his neck, burning his skin. But he didn't really feel uncomfortable. On the contrary, his body seemed to like this feeling very much. He couldn't wait to get closer and hug Jin Wang even tighter. Yeshu was uneasy of having this feeling. His teeth shuddered and he almost bit his tongue. Didn't Your Majesty want to discuss government affairs? Yes. Jin Wang held him tightly with one hand and took 2 memorials from the table with the other. This emperor just drafted 2 imperial edicts. Minister Ye, can you help Zhen take a look and ensure that there's nothing wrong with them? Yeshu couldn't wait to finish this work as soon as possible, so he quickly took the memorial and flipped through them. The language of this world was close to seal script, but Yeshu didn't have any difficulty reading them. He quickly finished reading the first imperial edict and was a little surprised. Your Majesty wants to take in a concubine. Jin Wang nodded, yes. People in ancient time married early. Normally, when people reached Jin Wang's age, children would have already been born from them. Furthermore, Jin Wang was born into the imperial family. Even if he didn't have a harem of 3,000 beauties, he should have at least 3 wives and 4 concubines. However, Jin Wang hadn't had a single concubine in his harem since his ascension. Furthermore, it was said that Jin Wang hated it when people brought up this matter in front of him. Since his ascension to the throne, none of the courtiers who dared to advise him to take in a concubine had a good ending. Why did he suddenly want to take in a concubine now? Also, what was there to discuss with him about with this? Yeshu couldn't guess what Jin Wang was thinking, so he didn't dare to casually speak. Jin Wang also didn't rush him. His hand slowly fell to the side of Yeshu's waist. Yeshu was only wearing a thin inner garment. Under the garment, his waist was tight and slender, and it felt very good to the touch. The body in his arms was tense and trembled with every touch. Jin Wang was having a lot of fun. Yeshu couldn't stand him doing things like this. He braced himself and said, Your Majesty is doing this for the sake of continuing the bloodline of the imperial family, and for the sake of having a successor to rule the country. This official has no comments about it? Wrong. Jin Wang leaned close to his ear and said with a smile, It's not for the sake of continuing the imperial bloodline, nor for the sake of the country. That meant he had someone in his heart. Yeshu's heart flashed with a trace of unexplained displeasure. Without waiting for him to ask, Jin Wang pointed to the other imperial edict on the table, Take a look at this. Yeshu flipped open said imperial edict. This was an order of execution. Left Prime Minister Yeshu had plotted to assassinate the emperor and committed treason. The evidence was conclusive. In accordance to the law, he would be executed by 1,000 cuts. Yeshu's hand trembled and the imperial edict fell onto the table with a clatter. Jin Wang covered his cold fingers, What's wrong? Yeshu's fingers curled up and he asked in a low voice, Does your Majesty want to have me executed? What do you think? I think. Yeshu hesitated for a moment, then said tentatively, I think your Majesty doesn't really want to kill me. Jin Wang didn't comment. Yeshu pursed his lips and continued, Your Majesty is the ruler of a country and could decide his subjects' life and death with a single thought. If your Majesty wants to do something, your Majesty won't beat around the bush. If he really wanted to kill him, Jin Wang had countless opportunities today. By showing this order of execution to him, it was clear that he wanted to discuss conditions with him. Yeshu lowered his eyes and tried his best to appear natural, What does your Majesty want in exchange for sparing this subject's life? The original owner of the body was directly ordered to be executed in the novel, so he didn't encounter any of this. Although he didn't know why the plot had deviated, Jin Wang was willing to spare his life most likely because he still had some use for him. In the blink of an eye, Yeshu had already made a mental list of all the people inside and outside of the imperial court who had the intention to rebel. If it wasn't enough, he could even tell him the military situation of Great Yan and West Xia, as well as their battle strategies. Using top-secret information in exchange for one's life was how it was usually written in conspiracy novels. But Jin Wang only said leisurely, This emperor already told you the condition. Yeshu was stunned. Jin Wang explained, This emperor suffered an assassination attempt during the autumn hunt. This matter must be resolved. The left Prime Minister is a major suspect in the assassination attempt and should be severely punished. The left Prime Minister can't be spared, but you. This emperor is willing to spare your life. But if you want to live, you can't continue to be the left Prime Minister anymore, and you can't appear in front of others as Yeshu. You would have to change your identity. Jin Wang dragged out his words and knocked on the imperial edict to take in a concubine. Yeshu's gaze followed Jin Wang's finger and instantly understood Jin Wang's intentions. You want to take me in as a concubine? Jin Wang smiled, That's right. Yeshu. Did this person take the wrong medicine today? Jin Wang asked, Is my beloved subject unwilling? This isn't a matter of whether I'm willing or not. Yeshu found it hard to believe, and his expression was somewhat dazed. Why is this so? Jin Wang said calmly, this emperor don't have anyone in the imperial harem, so it can't go on like this. Zhen need to put someone in the imperial harem and shut everyone's mouths on this matter. Yeshu gave him a look that said, go on, keep making things up. Of course, there's another explanation. Jin Wang smiled and his hand rubbed Yeshu's waist suggestively as he said, perhaps it's because Minister Yes body makes Zhen want to taste it again, so Zhen can't bear to execute you. Yeshu immediately felt goosebumps all over his body. This dog emperor had taken a liking to him. Your Majesty. Jin Wang lowered his eyes and said calmly, the imperial guards are standing just outside the temporary imperial residence. Should we let them take this imperial edict and take someone from the death row prison to die in your place, or should we tell them to take you to the imperial prison yourself? Minister Ye, can you help Zhen sort out this dilemma? Yeshu decisively said, this subject believe we should go for the first option. Jin Wang smiled with satisfaction, very good. Jin Wang immediately called Gao Jin, who was standing guard outside the door. Gao Jin came in front of the emperor, and Jin Wang explained his arrangements one by one. During this entire process, Jin Wang hugged Yeshu tightly, not letting him go for even a moment. Yeshu struggled to no avail. He was too ashamed to face anyone that he could only hide his face by burying his head in Jin Wang's chest. He could feel the old eunuch's strange gaze on him from time to time, and his ears turned completely red. After Jin Wang finished explaining, Gao Jin took the imperial edict and left the bedchamber. All right, everyone's gone. Jin Wang patted Yeshu's arm. Yeshu immediately tried to get up and struggled, let go of me. Don't want to. Jin Wang stroked his back unhurriedly, his voice was gentle but his tone was menacing, this emperor want to remind you that not killing you today doesn't mean that Zhen won't change his mind in the future. So, my beloved subject, you must perform well in the future. Otherwise, Zhen can take your life at any time. Yeshu sneered in his heart. He knew that this dog emperor wouldn't be soft-hearted so easily. In other words, didn't this mean that the emperor had taken a fancy to his body and wouldn't kill him before he got tired of playing with him? Dog Jin Wang. He really was a tyrant. Yeshu clenched his teeth and forced out a smile, yes, Your Majesty. This subject understands. Jin Wang said, since that's the case, then sign this imperial edict. Just now, the eunuch had only taken away the imperial edict for the execution of the left prime minister. The imperial edict for taking a concubine was still spread out on the table. There was still a blank space on the imperial edict, which was the name of the concubine being appointed. The sky outside the window gradually darkened, and the flickering lights sprinkled on the plain white silk paper. The ink-colored calligraphy moved like dragons and snakes, natural and unrestrained. Jin Wang switched to a red brush, dipped it in ink, and stuffed it into Yeshu's hand. Then, he held Yeshu's hand and leaned forward. Stroke by stroke, Yeshu was guided by Jin Wang to personally wrote down the name that had accompanied him for many years. Yet. Shu. Yeshu's heart suddenly flashed with a strange feeling. Jin Wang was very close, so close that Yeshu could see him only if he raised his eyes. His eyes reflected the faint light of the lantern, and the outline of his face was exquisite and handsome. There was no flaw to pick out. Yeshu's heart trembled slightly and he quickly averted his gaze. With the names written and signed, the imperial edict was considered complete. Yeshu watched as Jin Wang put away the imperial edict and his feelings were somewhat complicated. He didn't care whether or not he became a concubine. As long as he could preserve his life for now, there would always be a chance to escape in the future. His feelings were complicated because, he had prepared a basketful of top-secret information that could unify the world, but Jin Wang only wanted his bed to be warmed. This tyrant really didn't have any ambition. End chapter. Marked by a tyrant after transmigrating. Chapter 06. For the emperor to marry an imperial concubine, the imperial edict was only the first step. The process of an imperial wedding was very complicated and it would take at least a month to make the preparations. It was not possible to simplify it. The previous emperor, Huang, was excessively lecherous. Whenever he fancied a young master or a woman, he would directly order someone to carry them into his palace. He would first spend a night with them, then casually bestow a position to them within the harem to settle the matter. Forget about a wedding, it was unknown whether or not the concubines would even be able to see the emperor again. But Jin Wang did not want things like this. He ordered the Ministry of Rites to choose an auspicious day and announce to the realm that he was going to marry a possible empress. It seemed as if he was afraid that others would not know that he was going to get married. As for who he was going to marry, no one knew. Jin Wang's imperial edict was not made public. In reality, Minister Ye's preposterous act of faking his death to enter the harem was only known by a few of the emperor's most trusted aides. No one else knew, and those who knew would not dare to reveal it. The emperor of Changlu had always been unpredictable. Everyone tried to find out who it was, but no one dared to provoke him, so they could only give up for now. 3 days later, the rebellious left Prime Minister Yeshu was executed by 1,000 cuts outside the city gates. Tens of thousands of commoners and courtiers were forced to watch the execution. As for the emperor of Changlu, it was said that he had not yet recovered from his injuries after the assassination attempt and had been recuperating in his palace. He did not even get to see Minister Ye for the last time. Everyone in Changlu knew that Minister Ye and the emperor had grown up together and were as close as brothers. Who would have thought that a moment of glory would end up like this? Everyone felt that it was a pity, and they could not help but fear the emperor's ruthless methods. When the spies reported back, the emperor was hugging his yet-to-be-married concubine and eating fruit. Jin Wang raised his eyebrows and said with a smile that was not actually a smile, "There are still people who feel pity for the execution of a traitor." "Minister Ye, what do you think Zhen should do?" Said traitor was currently peeling lychees for Jin Wang. His hands trembled when he heard this and he almost threw the fruit away. Conspiring to rebel should be punished. Your Majesty. Your Majesty did not do anything wrong. After Yeshu finished speaking, he saw that Jin Wang was only looking at him calmly. He braced himself and continued, "It is not uncommon to see cliques forming in the imperial court for personal gain. It cannot be condoned." "Very good." Jin Wang tilted his head and took the lychee from Yeshu's fingertips. He looked at the spy kneeling in front of the palace and asked, "Do you know what to do now?" The spy replied, "Yes, Your Majesty." The spy accepted the order and left. Yeshu lowered his head, deep in thought. Jin Wang was scarier than he had imagined. It was only a public execution, but the private conversations of the officials were all within this person's control. There was probably nothing in the capital that he did not know. With those 300 spies, it would be almost impossible to escape from him. He had to think things through carefully. "What are you thinking about?" Jin Wang asked, seeing that he had not spoken for a long time. "Nothing." Yeshu gathered his thoughts, picked up a fruit from the fruit platter and continued to peel it for Jin Wang. His fair fingers covered the bright red peel and dipped into the sparkling juice. Jin Wang tilted his head and looked. Suddenly, his mouth felt dry. He coughed lightly and looked away. "Stop peeling." "Ah! I told you to stop peeling." Jin Wang lifted his chin and ordered, "Go grind the ink." "Yeshu. Didn't you want to eat fruit just now?" "Dog Emperor. You only know how to order me around." Jin Wang pretended to be ill as he stayed in the temporary imperial residence, but he did not neglect government affairs. Yeshu felt his head hurt when he saw so many words, but Jin Wang was very patient and carefully read them one by one. This reading lasted for nearly 4 hours. It was already late. Yeshu was bored to death as he leaned against the table. His stomach could not help but grumble. Jin Wang's hand paused as he flipped through the pages. He closed the memorial and said, "Let's eat first." As the dishes were placed on the table, Yeshu's eyes widened. Just as he was about to eat, he was stopped by Jin Wang. The eunuch presented a brocade box with a small and exquisite pill inside. Yeshu frowned. "What's this?" Jin Wang did not explain. He said calmly, "Eat it. It's good for your body." Yeshu did not believe a single word. What was this dog emperor thinking of doing to mess with him again? Jin Wang really did not have any bad intentions this time. Ever since Yeshu lost control of his pheromones, Jin Wang had sought out the imperial physician to do something about it. Yeshu had a special constitution. Even after being marked, his pheromones were still easily affected by external influences. This was a pheromone-suppressing pill that the imperial physician had just developed. It helped stabilize the pheromones. Unfortunately, the tyrant had too many dark histories. In Yeshu's heart, he had zero credibility. In that instant, Yeshu's mind was filled with countless plots. Yeshu threw his chopsticks down and said, "Are you going to poison me again?" "Jin Wang, I already promised to stay by your side. Do you still not believe me?" Yeshu said angrily, "I won't eat it." Jin Wang rubbed his forehead. "This is not poison. I don't believe you." Jin Wang also got angry. "If you don't eat, then you're not allowed to eat anything else. If you don't want me to eat, then I won't eat." The eunuchs who were serving the monarch heard this and trembled with fear. They all knelt down in a row and lowered their heads like quails. They were afraid that the emperor would implicate them in his anger. Jin Wang ordered, "All of you, leave." Everyone felt relieved and hurriedly left. Only Jin Wang and Yeshu were left in the hall. Yeshu looked at Jin Wang with a wary expression. Jin Wang felt helpless. In this world, only a small number of people presented as Alpha or Omega, most people were mundane. Thus, it was not strange that Yeshu did not realize that he had presented as an Omega. Furthermore, Jin Wang did not want to tell him the truth yet. Imperial physician Feng was right that day. Jin Wang should not have easily given him his Alpha mark. This was a disaster. Emperor Jin Wang was a disaster and Yeshu was also a disaster. Taking this pheromone-suppressing pill regularly would not only help Yeshu stabilize his pheromones but it would also make him seem like an ordinary person. It would save him a lot of trouble. He had to take this medicine even if he did not want to. Jin Wang narrowed his eyes. "You really don't want to eat it?" Yeshu was most afraid of him looking like this. His previous stubbornness dissipated. "No. I don't want to eat it." Of course, he could not eat it. He had read the novel and knew of Jin Wang's methods. The reason why those 300 secret agents were so loyal to him was because they had taken a special goo poison from Emperor Jin. Since ancient times, this was the method used to control the shadow guards. Once they really ate this medicine, they could forget about escaping in this lifetime. "Yeshu, have this emperor been too good to you these past few days?" Jin Wang picked up the pill and played with it between his fingers. "Didn't Zhen tell you before that Zhen can take your life at any time? Even if this is poison, what right do you have to say that you don't want to eat it?" Yeshu's legs went soft. He was not afraid of arguing with Jin Wang but he was most afraid of this person speaking in such a tone. He sounded as if he wanted to kill someone. Yeshu silently took a deep breath and pinched himself with the hand hidden under the table. When he looked up, his eyes were red. "Can I not eat it?" Jin Wang was stunned. The young man's eyes were misty and he looked as if his tears was about to fall. He had a frightened expression and looked very helpless. "I already agreed to follow you. Is it really hard for you to believe me? I will definitely listen to you and treat you well like I did in the past. Please don't give me this." "Jin Wang. Please don't force me." Jin Wang could no longer maintain his expression. He could not stand Yeshu mentioning the past. This was a tried and tested tactic that never failed. Yeshu lowered his head and quietly waited for Jin Wang to give in. His life was already in Jin Wang's hands. Poisoning him was completely unnecessary. If it was just a test, then it should have ended here. Yeshu was thinking this when his chin was suddenly lifted up by someone. Oh! His lips suddenly touched the other person's soft and cool lips. Yeshu's eyes widened in shock. Then, a pill was shoved into his mouth. Jin Wang forcefully clamped down on Yeshu's chin. With a gentle push of his tongue, the pill slid down Yeshu's throat. But Jin Wang still did not let him go. His hand moved to support the back of Yeshu's neck. His fingertips brushed the back of his ear and gently caressed it, as if he was gently comforting him. That pill was not bitter. Instead, it had a hint of sweetness in it. That taste lingered on their lips and tongues for a long time, causing their breathing to gradually become heavier. After a moment, Jin Wang let go of him. It really isn't poison. If Zhen lied to you, then Zhen would be Awang. Jin Wang's fingertips brushed Yeshu's crimson cheeks as he said, "Let's eat." Awang was a yellow dog that the original picked up when he was young. It had already died of old age. Yeshu looked at Jin Wang's calm and composed appearance and was so angry that his neck turned red. Calling you a dog is an insult to dogs. You're even more of a dog than a dog. Idiot Jin Wang. After dinner, Jin Wang continued to deal with the rest of the government affairs. Yeshu waited on the side, pouring tea, grinding ink, and lighting a lamp. It wasn't until the third time that he almost fell asleep that Jin Wang finally closed the booklet. Jin Wang was in a rare good mood. He asked, 2 days ago, when Zhen asked you to accompany Zhen, you always fell asleep after a short while. Why are you so obedient today? Yeshu lowered his eyes and obediently said, just doing my duty. Do you have a request? Jin Wang saw through his intentions and said, speak. As long as it's not too excessive, Zhen will agree to it. Yeshu hesitated for a moment, then said in a low voice, I want to go home and check my residence. Jin Wang's movements paused. He was naturally referring to the residence. The left Prime Minister Yeshu had already been executed in name and his residence had also been searched by the Imperial Army. The residence was now empty and there was nothing more to see. Yeshu said again, there is a group of stray cats living outside the back door of my residence. They usually go to the residence to beg for food. Now that winter is coming, without someone to care for them, I'm afraid they won't survive this winter. Of course, this wasn't a lie. Yeshu's memories of the original owner of this body were very vague. If it wasn't for Jin Wang mentioning Awang today, he wouldn't have remembered this matter. Jin Wang said, I'll send someone to bring the cats here. It's not convenient for you to show your face right now, so why do you have to personally go? No. Yeshu shook his head, they're afraid of strangers. If you send someone else, they definitely won't dare to come out. Jin Wang pulled Yeshu to sit down on the bed. His tone was very gentle, is it really just for the cats? Of course not. If Yeshu had previously wanted to tolerate this tyrant for a few days, he had now completely dispelled that idea. This person's personality was too unpredictable. The longer he stayed by his side, the more dangerous it would be. There was still more than a month until the wedding, so he had to find a way to escape as soon as possible. Once he entered the palace, there would be even less of a chance. If he wanted to escape from this tyrant, he couldn't rely on just himself. He had to find a way to contact the outside world. Yeshu's fingers trembled nervously. He quietly clenched his fists inside his sleeves and forced himself to look straight into Jin Wang's scrutinizing eyes. After a moment, Jin Wang softly said, it's not impossible. Your Majesty. But it depends on your performance. Jin Wang raised his hand and gently brushed his finger across Yeshu's lips. There was a hint in his voice, this emperor told you before, as long as you make Zhen happy, Zhen will naturally grant you any request. Yeshu felt a chill run down his spine. His ears instantly burned. He wanted to. Jin Wang met his gaze and gently smiled, "Go take a bath. Zhen will wait for you." End chapter.